Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. Firstly, a very happy New Year's to all of you. I hope you had a great holiday period. 2022 is now upon us, and I thought a great way to start off the new year would be to take a look at some of the best add-ons that we've seen in the sim to date, and as the title would suggest, I'm going to run through with you my favourite top 10 Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft add-ons. Worth noting from the get-go, this list really boils down to my own personal favourites, though I will briefly outline my reasons for each selection as we go. As some of you are probably already aware, I do fly as well in the real world. I certainly enjoy making my simulator sessions as realistic as I can, and there's definitely an emphasis on realism with my selections in the video today. All that being said, it is of course important to have fun in the sim as well, so I've certainly taken that into account, and there might be one or two choices as we go that might surprise you. Anyway, enough talking for now I think. Of course the best way to get the video underway is to start our top 10 countdown. As always guys, if you do enjoy the video or find it to be of use, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. Let's now begin our top 10 countdown of Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft for 2022. So the first product coming in at number 10 on our list is the DC Designs PT-17 Steerman. Funnily enough, I think the number 10 spot was actually one of the hardest to pick on our list. There really are, as I say, a number of great aircraft available within Microsoft Flight Simulator these days. Certainly I very much enjoy the Steerman, the Fly Inside Bell 47G, another great little aircraft, and I really rather like the AT Simulations P149D as well. So as I say, overall it was actually a really tough call to nail down the number 10 spot on the list. I went with the Steerman for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I think it's an aircraft that's really well suited to the sim. Obviously Microsoft Flight Simulator tends to lend itself better to the low and slow aircraft, and having that open cockpit as well really adds another layer of enjoyment to flying the aircraft. DC Designs generally tends to aim for a more casual market, and most of their jet aircraft aren't my own personal cup of tea, but I felt they really hit the nail on the head with the Steerman. The aircraft looks very nice, it sounds absolutely excellent, it's got one of the best sound sets in the sim. Systems wise, of course, the Steerman not a particularly complex aircraft, but you've got everything there that you need. And overall, whilst the flight model isn't study level, it's a very enjoyable aircraft to fly, very easy to cruise around in. And as I say, the sound set of the aircraft absolutely excellent, so it makes for a very immersive experience. The last thing that I really like about the Steerman, and the main reason that it secured the number 10 spot on the list, overall I think it's priced very fairly for what it is. Personally, I have no issue with lower fidelity aircraft as long as they're priced accordingly, and I think that the Steerman offers really good value for money. Next on the list at number 9 we have the SimSkunkworks Lockheed TF104G. If I'm honest, this one probably snuck onto the list due to it being one of my favourite aircraft in the real world. There are certainly other add-ons in the sim that are on a par with the TF104, but overall it does have some very nice features and a couple of features as well that are unique to the aircraft. The SimSkunkworks TF104 has a very nice visual model, as you can see. The flight model of the aircraft does a nice job of recreating the peculiarities of the F104. There are certainly a few nice touches in terms of external ground equipment, also a working radar on board the aircraft. Systems modelling is decent, and whilst the sounds could certainly be improved, overall they do a nice job of recreating the feel of the F104. The SimSkunkworks TF104 is an aircraft that I'm hoping will see future updates to, but for the time being, as I said, one that I really personally enjoy in the sim, and I think worthy of the number 9 spot. Next up, in the number 8 position, we have what I would probably consider to have been my biggest surprise within Microsoft Flight Simulator this year. A real little gem of an aircraft, an absolutely excellent value for money, and we're of course talking about the Mario Noriega Designs Caproni Vizzola C-22J Ventura. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but really everything about this aircraft is excellent. It is perhaps a little bit more dated than some of the aircraft that we've seen coming into the sim, but it did receive a graphical update very recently, and overall I still think it holds up quite well. As I mentioned during my review of the aircraft, I really fell in love with the little C-22J. It's a really pleasant aircraft to fly, great fun as well. Although it isn't up there with the very best graphically, overall it still holds up very well and it has a very decent immersion factor to it. Flight model is great, once again really fun to fly, the sound pack as well, very immersive. And probably more so with this add-on than any other add-on available for Microsoft Flight Simulator, the value for money is really second to none. The little C22J retails at only €10, it's excellent value for money. And that really goes back to what I was saying about developers selling their products at a reasonable price given the quality. Although in the case of the C22J it's an absolute steal, and pound for pound I'm not sure you're going to find a better add-on available in the sim. Next up, in our number 7 spot, we have the JustFlight Turbo Arrow. I think most of us who enjoy Microsoft Flight Simulator as a platform have a lot to thank JustFlight for. They were really the first add-on developer in the sim to start putting out some relatively study level products. Of course, the Arrow 3 was actually the first of their offerings for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And whilst I do enjoy the Arrow 3, I chose to put the Turbo Arrow in at the number 7 spot. Overall I think it's a more enjoyable, more versatile aircraft. The Turbo Arrow I think really built on the excellence of the Arrow 3, offering an even more immersive aircraft. I've generally always enjoyed JustFlight as a developer, but I think it's fair to say that they've really upped their game coming into Microsoft Flight Simulator. Overall, with the Turbo Arrow, whilst there are still one or two areas with the flight model that I would like to see improved, the aircraft is a very strong offering from JustFlight. It generally flies very nicely, the systems are more or less study level with some basic failure implementation there as well. Graphically, the aircraft looks very nice, although it isn't right up there with the very best. JustFlight aircraft are some of the only aircraft available in the sim currently with a persistent state, which is a really nice feature to have. And JustFlight seem to be absolutely knocking the ball out of the park when it comes to their aircraft sound sets, the Turbo Arrow certainly being no exception. And as I say, I really enjoy both the Arrow and the Turbo Arrow family, although the Turbo Arrow swings it slightly for me. Obviously that turbo giving the aircraft a little bit more speed, a little bit more cruise performance. Number 6 on our leaderboard is the Flying Iron Simulations Supermarine Spitfire Mark 9. My heart certainly wants to put the aircraft a little bit higher on our leaderboard, but I think overall the number 6 spot is pretty reasonable. The Flying Iron Spitfire probably the most beautifully modelled add-on at its time of release. We have seen some other aircraft come along subsequently that are every bit as good, but the Flying Iron Simulation Spitfire really set the bar in Microsoft Flight Simulator for quite some time. I think the Flying Iron Spit is one of the most interesting add-ons in the sim to date. It started off very nicely on release, but probably more so than any other add-on in the sim, it's really gone from strength to strength with each major update from Flying Iron really adding a whole lot to the aircraft and the overall experience. For those of you who have flown the aircraft, you'll know it's an absolute joy to fly. It's a very evocative machine to operate in the sim as well, really great sound pack. As I say, modelling and texturing really exquisite, particularly with the internals of the aircraft, the virtual cockpit, one of the best still currently available in the sim. I think the aircraft is very reasonably priced for what it is, and I'm sure for many like myself, the fact that it's a Spitfire in and of itself makes it an absolute must-have. Worth mentioning, unfortunately the Flying Iron Simulations P38 didn't make it onto my list, but the aircraft pretty much every bit as good. And once again, I really can't praise Flying Iron Simulations enough for the quality of their output, and perhaps more importantly still their dedication in terms of follow-up with development and updates to their products. In 5th place we have the Aerosoft CRJ. This one was a little bit trickier to place on the list if I'm honest. The CRJ was somewhat special in the sim as it really offered the first high-fidelity jet aircraft simulation within Microsoft Flight Simulator. I wouldn't go as far as to call the aircraft study level, and I don't think that Aerosoft themselves would either. Overall though, I think for the price, the CRJ is actually a very nice offering. Externally, graphically, it's nothing special. I actually quite like the virtual cockpit of the aircraft. The sound pack I would say is adequate, but really for me the strength of the aircraft is the systems modelling. Overall, again for the price, I think the systems depth is actually really nice on the aircraft. Unfortunately, on release the CRJ did have a few issues, particularly with automation and the flight modelling. For me that did mar the aircraft for some time, although it does seem that Aerosoft have fixed up the bulk of the issues now. The little jet still isn't perfect, but I would say overall it is the best available commercial jet simulation in the sim as it stands. Coming in at number 4 on our leaderboard is the Milviz FG1D Corsair. Here I feel we really move up a notch in terms of quality and the overall level of attention to detail that we're seeing from the developers. In a somewhat similar fashion to the Flying Iron Spitfire, the Corsair released in a very nice state. Nonetheless, Milviz put out a huge and very comprehensive update to the aircraft. For me at the moment, it's one of the most well-rounded, most well-polished products available within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Modelling and texturing are very good, the sound pack is excellent, the overall flight model of the aircraft very nice, the Corsair very quick to bite you if you mishandle the aircraft. Systems depth is excellent, and really the icing on the cake, the aircraft has lots of nice little touches that we don't see with really any other add-ons in the sim. Purchased outside of the marketplace, the Corsair has various options available in terms of munitions. We also have working 50 cal machine guns. Not to mention various failure modes on the aircraft, the ability even to empty the contents of your engine's oil supply over the aircraft canopy. I would say at the moment the Corsair is one of the most feature complete aircraft in the sim, and for that reason alone I think it's quite a special aircraft. Number 3 on our leaderboard is the recently released Simwork Studios Quest Kodiak. The Quest Kodiak, or the Kodiak 100, a very deserving title for the number 3 spot on our leaderboard. The Kodiak for me was another nice surprise this year, as I have tried some Simwork Studios add-ons previously, and whilst their Okavango add-on and indeed their Zenith add-on, both great products in their own right, for me neither of them come close to the Kodiak 100 in terms of quality and sheer excellence. The Kodiak is of course a new release, so I think there are still a few tweaks that the aircraft could benefit from, but once again overall it's a product that I find pretty hard to fault. The Kodiak boasts excellent visuals both in terms of modelling and texturing. I would say that the aircraft sound pack is right up there with the likes of JustFlight. The add-on boasts a very comprehensive and once again very immersive sound pack. Systems modelling is great, as generally as the flight modelling, although again I think there are just a few tweaks needed to the aircraft currently. We do also have some unique features with the Kodiak that we don't get with any other aircraft in the sim. For example, the ability to load up the cabin with 3D passenger models. Overall, the Kodiak is just a really great fun aircraft. I've very much been enjoying it, and I know that many of you have as well. In second place we have the PMDG Douglas DC6. The aircraft I think almost a bit of a legend now within Microsoft Flight Simulator. It was really the first study level aircraft that we had in the sim. Obviously there was a lot of excitement around the aircraft's release, and I think overall the aircraft really lived up to that hype. It seems to have sold very well in the sim. I gather that PMDG have sold more units within Microsoft Flight Simulator than in all other sims combined, which is pretty impressive. I know that some have had issues with the aircraft as the sim's been updated. I can only speak to my own experience. Personally I've been quite fortunate I suppose, and I haven't really had any issues with the aircraft since release. But overall the PMDG DC6, a beautiful rendition of a beautiful aircraft. Of course the real forte of the DC6 is the aircraft systems. As I say, an aircraft that we can definitely call study level. The systems modelling is second to none within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Personally I really enjoy the aircraft for its systems depth, also its character. The aircraft has a ton of character. It's a very pleasant aircraft to fly, and once again very immersive aircraft to operate with a really excellent sound pack. The DC6 is obviously not a cheap add-on, but I think many of us were pleasantly surprised at the retail price of the aircraft on release. Once again, I think the product offers really good value for money, and had I made this video just a few months earlier, I think the aircraft probably would have snagged the number 1 spot on our leaderboard. However, the DC6 does not take the number 1 spot in this particular analysis. For me, the best aircraft in the sim to date is the JustFlight Hawk T1. Overall, it's been my favourite product release this year, and as I say, I think it is the best add-on available for the sim currently. I do appreciate that military add-ons are not everybody's cup of tea within a civilian flight sim, and to be fair, that would have been very much my opinion a couple of years ago as well. That being said, of all the add-ons I've tried this year, the JustFlight Hawk T1, the most fun, the most well polished, the most well-rounded product that I've tried. You may well have seen me fly it a couple of times on the channel. I really enjoy making videos with the aircraft. Again, the T1 is a product that it's really hard to find any fault with. The sounds are excellent, I would say the best in the sim currently available. And sounds for me, I've really come to appreciate in the last year just how important a decent sound pack is. I think it's really the difference between having an immersive or an otherwise technically competent aircraft. So the sounds are great, the flight model very nice, again a couple of tweaks, perhaps a couple of improvements could be made there, but for the most part the jet, really good fun to fly, very pleasant. The systems depth is excellent. Once again I would say that the Hawk is a study level aircraft with the exception of the weapons systems. Of course to some degree they are limited by the platform itself. Overall the T1 is a very pretty aircraft, it's been rendered in exacting detail by JustFlight, it looks very photorealistic under most conditions. You also get a pretty decent amount of variety for your money, of course getting the T1, the T1A, as well as the Red Arrows variant of the Hawk. There are a multitude of options available in terms of loadout on the aircraft, as well as again the aircraft sporting some simple failure modes as well as a persistent state. And the Hawk can also be flown from both the front and the rear seat of the aircraft, so that adds a little bit more variety overall. If I'm honest, I'm not even sure that the Hawk is actually the aircraft that I've flown the most in the sim this year. I do tend to rather enjoy my civilian flying and my warbirds within Microsoft Flight Simulator. I really like flying low and slow in the sim. And so I think I've probably actually spent more hours in the Flying Iron Simulation Spitfire or the PMDG DC6. But as I say, for me, neither of those add-ons quite as well rounded, done to quite the same quality as the JustFlight Hawk. As I mentioned during some of my JustFlight reviews, and indeed during this video, I think that JustFlight have really upped their game coming into Microsoft Flight Simulator. They've certainly raised the bar a number of times throughout this year. They aren't the only dev to have pushed the boundaries of what's actually possible in the sim, although they've certainly done so quite consistently. They've given us some really great aircraft over the last year or so, and for my money, as I say, I think the Hawk the best aircraft in the sim to date. Anyway guys, that just about wraps up our top 10 countdown. As I say, a fairly subjective look into my thoughts on the top 10 add-ons available in the sim to date. Obviously we haven't gone into too much detail here, but I'll leave a link down to each of the various aircraft reviews in the video description below. So there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed my list of top 10 Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft add-ons for 2022. I think it's fair to say that overall 2021 was not a bad year for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Certainly we've seen some pretty decent aircraft starting to come into the sim finally, particularly within the last few months where we have seen the likes of the Simwork Studios Quest Kodiak and the JustFlight Hawk. Hopefully 2022 is going to be a stronger year still, with a whole host of add-ons due to come into the sim in the coming months. Once again, this list is based on my personal preferences, not too objective in nature. Nonetheless, obviously having reviewed a number of aircraft on the channel this year, I think I'm fairly well placed to offer up an opinion. Let me know down in the comments though, if you do wish to do so, what you think, if there's any aircraft that you expected to see on the list or would have liked to have seen. As I mentioned during the video, certainly down at that number 10 slot there were a whole host of aircraft that I could have quite happily fitted in there. Anyway guys, once again I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. As ever, a huge thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support, very much appreciated. Again, wishing all of you a very happy new year. I think it's probably best that we don't dwell too much on the previous one. To finish up, I thought I'd send you off with a replay of the JustFlight Hawk in action for those who are interested. Take really good care wherever you are, and I will see you all again soon.